Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for TWiT specials is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com. This is a TWiT special, number 62. Transitions at Google. Schmidt happens. Breaking news coverage on TWiT is brought to you by Slingbox, which just turned your iPad into a television. Slingbox introduces their new iPad app so you can watch your home TV on your iPad anywhere you take it. Check it out at Best Buy or slingbox.com.
Eric Schmidt was the CEO, and now Larry Page is the CEO, and I don't know yet what to make of what executive chairman means for Larry Page. But this was all just part of the earnings call that Google had. They had a great earnings call. Net revenue of $6.4 billion. That beat the Street. Street was expecting $6.06 billion. $8.75 a share. Beat $8.09 a share. So that's good news for Google overall. And then they just kind of slipped this in at the end. I guess the change starts April 4th. That's when Larry Page will take over day-to-day operations as Chief Executive Officer.
You're watching breaking news coverage on the TWiT network, brought to you by Slingbox. Slingbox just turned your iPad into a television, and they introduced their new iPad app, so you can watch your home TV on your iPad anywhere you take it. Check it out at Best Buy or slingbox.com. If you're just tuning in, about 20 minutes ago, Eric Schmidt announced that he is stepping down as CEO, as Tom mentioned, of Google, and Larry Page, one of the founders, is taking over. About 20 minutes ago, that was in the earnings call. About 20 minutes ago, this blog post crossed the official Google blog. An update from the chairman. I'll read it verbatim because maybe we can kind of read the tea leaves on here, because there's much more than meets the eye to this. This is a highly surprising, unexpected decision. And I do think the fact that the founder is stepping back in is fairly telling.
And we should clarify, when we say he's stepping down from CEO, we don't mean he's stepping down from Google. He's staying on at Google as what is called executive chairman. Yeah,
that's called up and out. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that his role at Google will be much constrained. They say they're, quote, streamlining the decision process. I don't think there's any way to interpret this except as a virtual firing.
Well, I don't know, because he is going to still be in charge of
dev.
What does he say? I will focus wherever I can add the greatest value on deals, partnerships, customers, and broader business relationships, government outreach, and technology thought leadership that are increasingly important given Google's global reach.
Yeah, I think that's temporary at best.
My thinking on this is that they've had some scuffles, especially over China.
I think that's, I mentioned this with Paul a few minutes ago, that's one of the biggest parts of this story is that, according to the gossip and the insiders, Eric Schmidt wanted to stay in China. He believed that Google had a right and a duty to stay in China. Larry Page was incensed by China's hacking Google in the first place, and there's human rights violations in the second place.
I got the impression that when the hack came, Larry Page seized on it to win the argument with Eric Schmidt.
I'm sure it was a long-standing argument. It was Christmas of last year, 2009, that apparently they gathered together and hashed it out. And Larry, finally using that hacking, was able to convince Eric, no, we're going to withdraw. Now, notice, over the months intervening, Google slowly edged back into China. They never really did close up shop in China. Face-saving on the part of the Chinese government and Google on both sides allowed them to stay in there. I think that was Eric Schmidt really, I think it was a tussle. And I think that at this point, Larry has won. Quoting from the blog, as our results today show, the outlook is bright, but as Google has grown, this is Eric Schmidt writing, managing the business has become more complicated. So Larry, Sergey, and I have been talking for a long time about how to best simplify our management structure and speed up decision-making. Over the holidays, again, these Christmas meetings that they want to have, we decided it was the right moment to make some changes to the way we are structured. For the last 10 years, we've all been equally involved in making decisions. This triumvirate approach has had real benefits in terms of shared wisdom. We will continue to discuss the big decisions among the three of us, but we also agreed to clarify our individual roles so there's clear, and this is, Tom, I think what we have to parse, clear responsibility and accountability at the top of the company.
Yeah, because it seems to me...
Accountability to whom? The shareholders? Was this something the shareholders wanted?
Well, that's what accountability usually means. I have a feeling it doesn't mean it in this instance. I have a feeling this is more accountability over decisions like, do we go into China, do we not? I think this started as Larry and Sergey saying, hey, we need a business guy to run this company. They bring Eric Schmidt in, and they probably had some, and this is all speculation, but they probably had some discord and wondered, now, wait a minute, who's accountable for what decisions? Let's define that.
This strikes me as a power grab. I can't think of any other way. And Schmidt, cognizant of the market and the market price, does say, Larry will now lead product development and technology strategy, his greatest strength. Starting from April 4th, he'll take charge. And I thought this was interesting. I'm certain that the next 10 years under Larry will be even better. And he's saying this is not an interim CEO.
No,
Larry's back.
That's absolutely true. This is not a Jerry Yang situation where Yahoo brought in Jerry Yang while they were doing a CEO search because he was the founder, he was the chief Yahoo or whatever they called him, and then he went back to that later. This sounds permanent. This says Larry thinks he can run this company better than Eric can.
Google has decided to do a live stream, which we will go to and cover at 1:30 this afternoon Pacific time, 4:30 Eastern, about 6 minutes from now. You can also go see it yourself, youtube.com/GoogleIR. I think that's, I'm reading the handwriting correctly on this card, youtube.com/GoogleIR. Let me go there right now.
Yeah, that's right.
This is I have to say, this is extraordinarily surprising. There have been no hints. It sounds like it did not come from the board, which is where normally these kinds of moves come from.
Yeah, there were no leaks about this. This took everyone by surprise. All the previews of Google's earnings call were, we expect a good earnings call. Here's the cheat sheet if you want to read along with what kind of sales we expect, what numbers we expect. It was all expected to be a very run-of-the-mill, if positive, Google earnings report, and this kind of blew everybody out of the water.
Now, this is I'm looking at this video. It says it's their earnings call. I don't know if this is a post of their previous earnings call, must be, or a live stream of some other kind. But we'll monitor this and see what happens here. But we were quoting earlier from the official Google blog and the official statement from Google Investor Relations. A quote from Larry Page, of course, written by publicists. Eric has clearly done an outstanding job leading Google for the last decade. The results speak for themselves. There's no other CEO in the world that could have kept such headstrong founders. Again, I'm reading tea leaves. So deeply involved and still run the business so brilliantly. It's a thank you. Well done. I'm a headstrong kind of guy. And you know what? I want to run this. Eric is a tremendous leader. I've learned innumerable lessons from him. His advice and efforts will be invaluable to me as I start in this new role. Now, this is a question maybe the chat room would know. Maybe you know, Tom. Has Larry Page ever really been the operations guy at Google? Is this something a mantle he's reassuming?
I don't remember exactly what the makeup was before.
10 years ago, Google was a heck of a lot smaller.
Well, yeah, remember having them on the screensavers? It was just two guys,
right?
In 1999, and then they grew faster than they expected and decided we need a business head. I have a vague recollection that Sergey and Larry sort of co-ran it, and Sergey was programmer and Larry was business for a while. But I wouldn't bet my life on it.
This may be the most telling of all. As often is the case, people on their Twitter feeds are a little bit more forthcoming than they are in official releases. Eric Schmidt's last tweet was December 10th. Just a few minutes ago, he posted this. Day-to-day adult supervision no longer needed.
That's very telling. That says Larry thinks he can run this company, and he wants to.
That's the kids.
So you know what?
He's saying,
I'm going to let him.
He said, I'm the adult.
Yeah.
They were the kids for the last 10 years. And, Eric Schmidt was the suit, wasn't he? These guys weren't suits. They were sneakers and blue jeans guys. Eric Schmidt was brought in, a former, I believe he was CEO at Novell, former executive at Novell. He was brought in to run the company while the kids did their thing. Perhaps it's just a statement that Larry Page feels he's now mature enough to run the company. It's very unusual, though, at this late stage to see founders reassume executive positions.
The student has become the master.
Yeah.
Also,
I have to say
also,
this feels like a firing. I can't.
still feels like a
it
firing.
feels like
to
a
you.
firing.
I can't tell for sure. I don't know what that executive chairman means.
We've seen this before. It's not unusual that you push somebody upstairs. Basically, it's the retirement home.
Although Ballmer and
by
Gates,
the way, a huge stockholder.
Ballmer and Gates had a similar situation for a while, where Gates was still very much in charge, even though he was chairman, and Ballmer was the CEO.
But Gates was the founder. And there's
a big difference.
There's a difference there. Eric Schmidt is not the founder. Eric Schmidt is the guy they brought in.
Also, a slightly interesting breaking news at the same time. HP has gotten rid of 4 of their board members,
including.
Oh well, but they've brought on Meg Whitman.
They brought on Meg Whitman
as a board member. Leo Apotheker is still CEO. There's some people saying that he's been ousted, but he hasn't. As far as we know,
big shakeups going on.
They just shook up things. CEO Meg Whitman, former eBay CEO Meg Whitman, and former Alcatel-Lucent CEO Patricia Russo are among 5 new directors named to HP's board. So within a week, Steve Jobs goes on medical leave. Meg Whitman joins the board of HP. And Larry Page takes over as CEO from Eric Schmidt of Google.
Any chance that this is a wild rumor that Eric Schmidt, who was an Apple board member until recently, might be invited to come over to Apple and run it?
That is a wild rumor. That is an intriguing thought.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
I'm telling you once again, if you're just joining us, this breaking news coverage. Eric Schmidt, about 45 minutes ago, during the Google earning call, announced their Q4 earning call announced that he was stepping down as CEO effective April 4th. Larry Page, one of 2 founders of Google, will be taking the CEO role. It sounds like as permanent CEO, not an interim CEO, not no executive search going on. He's going to run the company. His co-founder, Sergey Brin, will be it sounds like do the vision thing. He'll be an innovator he will be inventing. Larry, it always seemed to me, of the 2, Larry was the guy who wanted to run the company. He was the most active in, I think, day-to-day operations, and most in conflict with Eric Schmidt. Yeah.
And the more I think about it, the more I remember that is Larry was running the business before they brought in a bona fide, experienced CEO.
Yeah.
And I think he says, hey, you know what? I could do this again. I want to do this again. I appreciate it. It seems like it's fairly amicable, as far as these things go.
They're going to handle it that way no matter what.
Certainly. But they don't always. Mark Hurd was not handled all that amicably.
Yeah. That was another
when he left HP. So,
we should mention that Eric Schmidt is the 40th richest American, according to Forbes.com. He's worth many billions of dollars. So he's not going to be on the unemployment line anytime soon.
The Sergey move seems like the most marginalizing one of them. To me, Eric Schmidt has got a golden parachute.
It's going to be my guess that that's what Sergey wanted.
That must be.
I think that Sergey, and if I'm Sergey, I can kind of understand that. He said, look, I love the technology. I want to work on the technology. I don't want to run this thing.
He gets the smallest paragraph in the post, too.
Yeah. This is a coup by Larry Page, in my opinion. Eric Schmidt, as of last year, was worth $5.5 billion. He's doing okay.
So
he became chairman of Google, CEO of Google in 2001. He was recruited by Larry and Sergey.
Right.
And brought in from Novell to run the company. But I have to think that something happened, and it really seems pretty clear to me that Larry said, I want to run it now.
And they also didn't want it to be a firing. They didn't want it to be thought of that way. That's they're definitely keeping Eric around because he has a lot of relationships. But if you're right, within a year, we're going to see him transition
Absolutely.
out. At which point, there might be an opening at Apple, as you suggested. There's also an opening at Regis.
I don't think Eric's got the personality.
I almost think those are equally likely, though.
Boy, this is a huge story. I'm still camping on the YouTube page, youtube.com/GoogleIR for their earnings call. They said that they would have begun it 3 minutes ago. I don't know what's going on, but I have to point out that Colleen Kelly, who was our former chief of engineering here, is the person who does these live feeds both internal and external at Google, and is very likely right now scrambling around the TriCaster at the Google campus in Mountain View.
This is an interesting side note. Google stock was down $5 today, 0.79%, in advance of what is expected to be good earnings. So kind of saggy.
That's pretty typical.
After hours change, up 2% right now, up $12.
They did make this announcement at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, right after market close, which is fairly common. They don't want to see that that stock price take a sudden hit.
But it's not. It's taken an after hours.
It's actually going up.
It's going up.
Well, you know what? That may also tell you something. And I think that I'm not alone in this. That Eric Schmidt was not seen as the perfect man to run a company like Google. We were talking with Paul Thurrott during Windows Weekly when the audio's going. All right.
Oh, if you
not at all.
There it is.
This is the.
There's really no one else in the universe that could have accomplished what Eric's done. And Eric's really a tremendous leader, and I've learned a ton from him over the years.
Larry Page speaking.
His advice and efforts going forward as executive chairman will be invaluable to me and to the company as I start this new role. Google, I want to say, is just incredible opportunity. When we started Google, people actually thought we were coming in too late, that there were already a lot of other search engines. And the internet and really people's computing life is really still at the very early stages. And I cannot be more excited about moving us forward, and we're really only at the beginning. I just can't wait to get us started.
Thank you, Larry. Sergey, do you want to talk a little about what you would like to get done in this new structure?
I'd like to first at the outset mention that I've had a great time working together with Larry now for about 15 years and with Eric for about a decade. And both of them have really inspired me and moved me, and I'm looking forward to many more decades of work together. Now, as we have tried to clarify our respective roles now, I would like to work more on my personal passions, which corresponds of several significant new products that I hope to tell you about in the future. I'm not going to. I know we've been accused of.
This is Sergey Brin talking. He's saying, "I'm going to be the product guy."
So I don't want to repeat that error, and I hope to tell you about them in the future when I'm ready to show you something. But nonetheless, it's really a privilege to work with these two gentlemen, to continue to work with them, and at this company that I've been really proud to be a part of all this time.
No, thank you very much. And as for myself, I'm going to get a chance to work
Eric
on
Schmidt
the things
speaking.
that I'm most interested in, taking a more strategic view of things. And I'm going to focus on customers, partners, various government communications, external issues more than the internal issues that I've historically been focusing on. So that's a significant, I think, improvement in the kind of things that I can do with my time. And I want to say very clearly that I believe Larry is ready. He's been working on this area for a long time. His ideas are very interesting and clever, and it's time for him to have a shot at running this and doing it, and I'm sure he'll do a fantastic job. It's interesting that a decade goes by very fast when you work in a partnership as wonderful as this has been, and I'm quite sure that this partnership will continue. We're friends, we're coworkers, we're computer scientists, we have a common vision. I don't anticipate any material change in any of our strategies or anything. We tend to agree on pretty much everything. But I do believe that as a result of this, we'll operate and execute the business even better. So with that, I thought maybe what we should do is have a few questions before we rush off. And then, Patrick, thank you so much for accommodating us onto your call.
It's our pleasure. Jay, if you don't mind, what we'll do is we'll set two sets of questions for this afternoon. We'll just take a few questions now because we have Larry, Sergey, and Eric. And so we'll take a few questions, and then after that, we'll close that section of the call, let them run back.
This would be their earnings call normally, and they're sort of shaking up the order.
As we usually proceed.
Normally, they would just go right into the results for the last quarter.
Eric is, in fact, an engineer.
So, Jay, if I can ask you to give us the instructions to take a couple of questions for Eric.
Looking at the Wikipedia article, they say he wrote Lex, the lexical analyzer software for Unix.
It is *1 on your telephone keypad. If you're using a
So
speakerphone,
there's some mechanics as they inform the analysts listening how they can ask questions.
Once again, that is *1 if you'd like to ask a question. I'll go first to James Mitchell with Goldman Sachs.
Great, thank you very much. Congratulations on the movements and congratulations on the results. I guess one question I had, just stemming from the results rather than from the movements perhaps, is when I look at the investment in 111 8th Avenue in New York City, do you feel that Google's now at a point where in order to continue facilitating the growth of the Internet, that there'll be a land grab for desirable physical locations?
They bought the building that they use for offices in New York.
I think our primary reason for purchasing the building there was not the Internet infrastructure there, but rather the office space that we really enjoy using. The Internet tenants are great, well-paying tenants.
Larry taking this question.
We appreciate having them there, but that's not the primary reason why we purchased the building.
Already kind of assuming as well.
Let's have our next question.
Our next question comes from Spencer Wang with Credit Suisse.
Thanks. Good afternoon. Just a big picture question for Eric. You mentioned that one of your areas of focus will be on government outreach, and it seems like Google's maybe come under a little bit more regulatory scrutiny over the past several years. So I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about your strategy with regulators to just ensure that Google can continue to expand as necessary. Thank you.
The simple answer is that we're talking to them. An awful lot of the problems that we've been having are people don't actually understand what we really do and what we don't do, and some of our competitors are assisting in that misinformation. And so part of our core strategy is literally to communicate. This is what we're doing. We're trying to be as transparent and collaborative as possible. I would tell you very clearly that the regulators have a proper job to do. You know, they're there for a reason, and we respect that. And so far, we've been quite successful by just taking the time to get people to understand. And we're sensitive to the close lines, that is where we get too close to something, and we try to stay away from that. So we try to stay well within the safety zone of the way we're operating with respect to the legal issues and the competitive issues. We also argue very strongly that the things that we're doing are very pro-competitive, and I genuinely believe that, and I'll be telling people a lot of that for a long time, I suspect.
Eric Schmidt could stay on as chief lobbyist.
Actually, that would make a lot of
sense.
sense.
Our next question will come from Imran Khan with J.P. Morgan.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for taking my questions, and congratulations to everybody. Quick question. Larry, as you become the CEO, I think it's a very interesting juncture of Google's life cycle. I think, there's a lot of questions that we get from investors that, the proliferation of social networking and how the traffic, more and more traffic source that the social networking platforms are becoming. So as Google, get to the next level, how do you think about the real-time search and in the social networking platforms that are becoming a broader and the web applications and mobile apps? How do you think Google become the point of, place that you can send traffic to other places?
Sergey, you've been driving most of this, and maybe Larry, you could comment as well.
I think that you point out two important trends, I think. One is the notion of real time, and the other...
Sergey's clearly the product guy at this point.
Identity, relationships, and so forth.
It's a good division of labor, to be honest.
And I think both of those are very important to search. In fact, you've seen over the past year or so us roll out functionality along those lines. First of all, of course, we have the real-time updates now built into our search, which includes Twitter and other sources. You've also seen us deploy social search, which allows you to find search results that are related to people who you know and friends of their friends and so forth. And you see those right in the main search results of the web. But I think that this is really just the tip of the iceberg. And I think there's far more opportunity. We've touched just 1% of the capabilities that could be deployed in that realm, and I think you should expect us to continue to develop those kinds of capabilities.
Larry, did you want to add anything to that?
I mean, the last part of what Sergey said really resonates with me. I think that there's if you think about the next 5 years of what your life will be like online and socially, and what kind of things the tools will be able to do. We're only at the very, very early stages of that, and I'm incredibly excited about the possibilities of that.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question, and I'll just have a final comment.
Our next question comes from Justin Post with Bank of America.
Thank you. We've noticed a lot of changes on the site moving you farther down the purchasing funnel. And we've heard some regulatory pushback, so maybe this is a question for you, Eric, but also potential some advertiser complaints. So we're just wondering how the changes in your search ad results are they really driving your revenues and helping drive the strong growth? And how are you dealing with the advertisers and the regulatory environment on some of those changes that might be replacing some of the functionality of other websites? Thank you.
There's no question that our extraordinary results are partly coming from algorithmic improvements that we do all the time. Our basic strategy, of course, is to have the right ad in the right spot, done exactly right.
I think it's actually very telling that the financial analysts are not spending a lot of time on operational questions or questions about Larry as a CEO or where Eric's going. They're asking about the product. And I think that shows that the stock market is confident that Larry can run the company and really wants to know what's going on with the product. That's what they're making their decisions
This may
on.
have been even expected. Or maybe
they
not
don't sound too
expected,
surprised.
but not surprising.
Necessary complaints and so forth that people are hearing. So I think with that, we sort of run. Patrick is saying we really run over our time. I really appreciate everybody sort of.
So that's the end of the this part of the earnings call.
These are the questions that they would have probably asked at the earnings call had Eric Schmidt not stepped down.
In fact, I think probably a couple of them were using it as a chance to get in an extra question because there'll be another round of questions at the end of the earnings section of the earnings call, but they won't be answered by Eric Schmidt and Larry Page.
And I'm even more looking forward to working with my literally best friends and partners, Larry and Sergey. And I hope you all understand how powerful this triumvirate has been and how, for us personally, and how much it means to us as individuals. So thank you all. And Patrick, you want to just sort of take over?
It's a little bit of a love fest.
Thank you so much, Larry,
Does
Sergey,
not
Eric, to take the time to join us this
smack
afternoon.
of any kind of
So with that, what we'll do is...
upset.
So now they're going to talk about the results, and I think we'll leave them.
We're going to jump right into it. And
Results were good. We do know what the results were already. This is just them talking about it.
they beat the street. They beat analyst expectations.
So once again, if you're just tuning in, a very big surprise this morning, and actually about 45 minutes ago, this afternoon, Eric Schmidt announcing that he would be stepping down, leaving as Google CEO, taking over a new role called Executive Chair, that Larry Page, one of the founders of Google, would become the CEO of Google. Larry did run Google, but not when they were quite so big, 10 years ago when they were a pretty small concern. Sergey Brin, the other Google co-founder, will take a role as lead product development and technology strategist. And, listening to that conversation, they sounded like friends. Eric Schmidt ended with, we are, best of friends. This triumvirate's been successful.
He did say it in the past tense.
Yeah.
I don't know if
well,
that's
history,
overparsing.
going back to the Roman Empire, triumvirates are not a very stable setup. And ultimately, somebody does assume control and become
Caesar
emperor.
Page.
And I think Caesar Page has taken
Larry.
has taken charge here. And I think that there's no other way to interpret it. It's obviously amicable. Certainly, Eric's got plenty of Google stock. He's not going to hurt. They want as smooth a transition as possible. So you're not going to hear any rancor, I don't think. But I have to think that this is really a coup in a way. I think this is Larry Page. Maybe they planned it for years. We don't know. They didn't imply that they had.
Is it semi-retirement for Schmidt, who says, you know what, I'd like to just
He's
be on
my
the
age.
Hill lobbying for Google.
Yeah, he's 55 years old. Maybe it's time. I don't think so. I think some of this is frankly reproach for the last year where Eric Schmidt has said some things that have not been taken very well. Of course, Larry said a few things too that have not been taken very well. But I think Larry perhaps feels he's grown into the role of a chief executive officer, and it's time for him to take it back. Google has always been an unusual company, and this is a very unusual move. Usually when the founder steps down, they don't come back.
It's a clean break, yeah.
The only place I could think of it is at Apple, where, of course, Steve Jobs did come back, but that didn't happen quite the same way. You're watching breaking news coverage of a huge story. As always, at TWiT, we will go to those huge stories and cover them. Brought to you today by Slingbox, just in time for the big game coming up in a week or two.
Is there a big game
There's a big
up?
game this Sunday. I think there's a couple of big games. And in a couple of weeks, there's a couple of big games. And Slingbox will be there. As long as you can watch it on your TV, you can take it with you with Slingbox. Slingbox lets you watch your home TV system on your iPad, your iPod Touch with Wi-Fi, your iPhone, your BlackBerry, of course, your computer, your Windows or Mac, via the internet. All you do is you go to your Best Buy, you pick up a Slingbox, you connect it to your TV setup, you connect it to the internet, and now, boom, you can log into your TV. You can even change your DVR set recordings and watch anything that you've got on your system without additional fees.
It's super.
You're a big Slingbox owner, I know.
Yeah.
And, of course, with the new iPad app, you can watch it big screen, too. Check it out, Best Buy or slingbox.com.
It'll bully over.
So, Tom, I know TNT's coming up in about, soon.
Yeah.
45 minutes. And
as soon as right after iPad today, obviously this breaking news is going to shift our schedule
just a little bit. We'll do a short iPad
We'll be talking with Don Reisinger, freelance journalist, as well as Dr. Kiki, about not only Eric Schmidt stepping down, but Meg Whitman joining the board of HP, and Verizon is suing the FCC over the net neutrality rules. So that'll all be discussed.
Eric Schmidt is, by the way, currently 116th on the Forbes list. Yeah. Thank you, Nightingale. A mere $6.2 billion, so I stand
Is that
corrected.
all? No wonder he's staying around.
He's 40th,
he needs the money.
40th richest American,
but
only 116th in the world.